follow that by invocation by Chaplain Vargas, and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing on the people who have been called to lead and serve our community in which we live, pray, and work. Remind them that they are not only leaders, but also servants, and that it is their responsibility and ours to serve our brothers and sisters in the best way and in the best of our abilities. Remind them that no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor. That we're called to respect and protect the least of those among us. Our children, our elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no home, those who are ill, the strangers and immigrants in our midst, those who live in the margins, and those who are forgotten. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. In the day and we speak out, when it's time to speak, and listen patiently and receptively when it's time to listen. In the day and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, by the spirit of true service and love. We pray this through your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your attendance. I hope everybody's already gone out and voted. Today was a voting day, so you still have an hour and a half before the polls close, just in case you forgot to do that. Our next item on the agenda is going to be approval of the official agenda, and I have some things that I need to talk about being taken off the agenda and removed from consent in particular. So I will go first here. I'm removing from consent the special call meeting of the mayor and the board of aldermen. I had not intended to put that on consent, so if we would remove that one from consent, please.
That's the third one down?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And then we have, under board business, we have a very long one. The number 1 on there includes a resolution of intent, which is also removed from consideration this evening. We will keep on the application and a resolution that goes with the application, but the ROI, the resolution of intent, will be removed from consideration tonight. And then we also have under code enforcement item 1A, we have 117E00029 1040 North Montgomery Street. They have begun to come into compliance, so we have removed that from consideration of this particular public hearing. So those items should be noted. And now, does anyone from the board have and before I say anything, Alderman Little is with us telephonically, so he is going to be doing, Alderman Little, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3. So he will be there, and because he's here telephonically, it'll be a roll call vote each time we vote. So I'm going to have to remember that. I'm sure Mr. Latimer will kick me under the table here if I forget. So, all right. With that in mind, anyone on the board who wishes to make some changes to the official agenda, consent agenda? Any changes? Vice Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, first of all, this is a number of them. Under Roman number 4, also want to remove the last set of minutes on May 25, 2018.
Okay. The budget work session?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Roman number 10, number 2, consideration to allow Starkville Country Club to have a fireworks show on its property Tuesday, July 3 at 9 p.m.
Okay.
Further advancing on this page, on over to number 6 under Human Resources. Want you to remove items number 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, the first 3 under Human Resources
Yes,
removed
ma'am.
from consent? Okay.
And let's see what else. Just give me a moment for indulgence, Mayor.
Sure.
That is it, Mayor, yield.
Okay, all right.
Mayor, one last thing, if I may
Yes,
ask. I see we have pending litigation on our agenda on the executive session, room number 14. Is that a placeholder, or is that a active or a live item? If not,
It's a live item, Vice Mayor.
okay, very good. Thank you, I yield, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else who wishes to make, Alderman Carver?
Not necessarily a change, but under Parks, item 2, I'd like to send big thanks to the Starkville Pilot Club for that reimbursement at J.L. King Splash Pad. We went by there last week, and I hear continuing comments. I think that's one of the nicest parks we have in the city. So if you hadn't had an opportunity to go by and check that splash pad out, check the features that have been done on the playground equipment, and again, thank you to the Starkville Pilot Club.
Absolutely, thank you. And while we're at it, Mr. Logan has received, I sent it out in an email to the board, but Mr. Logan has received an award, or an honor, I guess I should say. He was selected 1 out of 4 from 38 applicants nationwide to go ahead, please help me with that.
NRPA conference.
The NRPA conference, so that's an honor, so congratulations. Okay, anyone else, either the official agenda or the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, then I need a motion to approve the official agenda with the consent agenda items as stipulated.
So move.
I have a motion from Alderman Carver, second. Second from Alderman Sistrunk. All right, this will be a roll call vote, so if you would, answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
Okay, by a vote of 7-0, the motion passes. We have now official agenda and consent agenda items. I will read the consent agenda items. First up is consideration of the minutes of the May 1, 2018 regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, Mississippi. Consideration of the minutes of the May 11th, 2018 work session meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, Mississippi. Under airport, we have consideration for approval of the RSI maintenance repair agreement for the automated weather observation system, AWOS, at Georgia and Bryan Field. Number 2 is consideration for approval of the RSI net service agreement, service order for the automated weather observation system, AWOS, at Georgia and Bryan Field. Under planning, we have item F, which is consideration of entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, MDAH, to accept a certified local government grant, CLG, to prepare a downtown Starkville design guidelines. H is consideration of renaming Beatty Street and Short Beatty Street to Roosevelt Taylor Senior Street. Under engineering, it's 1, consideration to authorize the purchase of a JCB 110W rubber tire excavator to replace a 2001 model state contract number 82000360002 to be used by the Street Department of the City of Starkville and for the city clerk CFO to obtain financing leasing quotes. Under the fire department, item 1 is request approval to issue a commercial burn permit to York Development to burn clear debris associated with the construction project at the Highway 12 bypass behind the La Quinta Hotel. Number 2 is request permission for Fire Chief Yarborough to attend the Fire Rescue International Conference in Dallas, Texas on August the 8th to the 11th, 2018 with advanced travel not to exceed $1,300. Under Human Resources, we have number 4, which is request authorization to hire Bradley Robertson and Casey Wallace as Maintenance Worker 2 in the Streets Department. Under Parks, we have consideration to authorize the selection of pyro shows to be used as the fireworks vendor by the Park and Recreation Department of the City of Starkville for the 4th of July celebration, and authorization for the mayor to sign the required contract with pyro shows. Number 2, consideration to authorize the purchase of a water bucket feature in the amount of $8,602 from the Landscape Structures, the lowest of 2 quotes, to be installed at the J.L. King Senior Memorial Park Splash Pad to be reimbursed by the Starkville Pilot Club. Number 3, consideration of the approval of a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the City of Starkville and Starkville MSU Area Rapid Transit SMART, and approval for the mayor to sign the MOU. Number 4, consideration of the approval of the Parks Vendor Agreement to use for events, including the 4th of July event scheduled for July the 4th, 2018. Under the Police Department, we have request authorization to allow Sergeant Kenneth Watkins permission to take 6 credit hours at MSU as allowed within the existing city policy as it pertains to reimbursable educational courses. Number 2, request authorization to allow Chief Frank Nichols to attend the 2018 Summer Educational Conference in Biloxi, Mississippi on June the 26th through the 29th, 2018. Chief Nichols is an executive member of the association serving on the Planning and Events Committee to be reimbursed through the Chiefs Association. Under Sanitation Department, is request authorization to purchase a 10-foot cutter from Wade Equipment, the lower of 2 quotes at a cost of $7,500. Under Utilities, item 1 is request authorization to solicit bids for a new HVAC system for the Starkville Utilities Building. Number 2 is request authorization to advertise for source supply bids for Starkville Utilities Electric Division for July 1 through December 30 of 2018. Request authorization for Donald Smith Company, Inc. to provide maintenance for the Bluefield Number 1 well elevated tank and Curry Street well to provide repairs. Number 4 is request authorization for Starkville Utilities to accept the lowest and best quote to Vanguard VBT-75S2 vacuum bottle tester from Garner Lumley for $8,500. And that concludes the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir, happy to do it. Okay, next we have consideration of the,
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
before we go any further, we did rename a street tonight.
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor has family here,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'd like to offer my congratulations to his family on getting that street
Yes.
renamed.
And we will make sure that our street department gets that taken care of ASAP. Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, and we have 2 items under minutes that we need to consider, which is the first one, consideration of the minutes of the May 25th, 2018 special call meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, Mississippi. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Move approval.
I have a motion to approve from Alderman Miller. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Sistrunk. Discussion.
I recognize Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Here. I thought I heard some static down there.
I did
I
too,
think
I'm not
it
sure.
was-
Mr. Little, you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Mayor, I'm looking at these minutes, item number 5 on these minutes. A motion to approve a settlement of the Starkville Pride litigation upon the motion of Alderman Sistrunk, seconded by Alderman Miller to approve a settlement of that certain lawsuit pending United States District Court for the Northern District of Mississippi, Oxford Division, Stiles, Starkville Pride, Baylor McDaniel, and Emily Turner versus City of Starkville, bearing cause number 1:18 CV032 SA-DS, and authorizing the city to pay $12,750 to plaintiff attorney fees to enter into an order of dismissal with prejudice, and authorizing the city attorney to take necessary steps to conclude the case, including acquiring a release and settlement agreement from the plaintiff. The board voted as follows. Let me first say that
Mayor,
I have the floor, Mayor. Will you keep
He
everybody
does.
quiet until I get finished? I don't like to be interrupted. When I get finished, everybody in this room and within the sound of my voice will know that. I don't want nobody to interrupt me while I have the floor. I have that privilege. I want everybody to be quiet when I'm talking. Now, as to this particular set of minutes, the board speaks through its minutes. The board does not speak through the mayor. The board does not speak through the vice mayor. It does not speak through any individual member of this board. The minutes of this board is to accurately, correctly, legally, and properly reflect the act or actions that took place at the meeting that pertains to the minutes that we're about to further consider. The minutes, in my opinion, I want everyone to listen to this very carefully. The minutes that are before us as it is written, exactly as it is written, based on my research, the wording of this motion as I just read it, let me say that again. The wording of this motion as I just read it is not the same motion that was read and recorded on Friday, May 25, 2018. I'm going to say that one more time. The motion that I just read is not the same language that was read and, put an "and" with that, and recorded at the special call meeting on May 25, 2018. The motion that was read and recorded at the special call meeting said that, offered by Sistrunk, second by the gentleman from 5, Alderman, my colleague from 5, Alderman Miller, that the board approved settlement of the proposed litigation restate that the board offered the motion, approved a settlement of the prior litigation based upon the proposed terms. Now, that's how the motion was recorded. But I get here tonight, the board cannot speak after the fact. So this motion is not proper, in my opinion. This motion is not legal, in my opinion. Even with that motion that was recorded at the meeting on Friday, May 25, 2018, on the proposed terms, in order for any terms to be legal, the terms have to be recorded in the minutes. The minutes is the sole, legal, exclusive, and only voice of this board. This board does not have any other voice. We don't speak through anybody else at this table. Nobody individually. Now, this motion that's here tonight for consideration was not what was presented and recorded. Now, if it was not presented and recorded, then it's not properly before us for consideration. Now, if this board has the votes to adopt this motion, then it has to do that in a separate action. Now, as we talk about these minutes, I want to applaud the gentleman from the Commercial Dispatch who came out in the paper that Sunday talks about that it was announced into the record that we paid $12,750 for attorney fees, and that the city has to include a provision in the agreement that was obviously allegedly approved by the board that talked about recognizing October as LBGT. Even if you look at this motion right here, just read it. Read this motion that's before us tonight. This motion, upon the motion of authorizing the city attorney to pay $12,750 in attorney fees to enter into an order of dismissal with prejudice, and authorizing the city attorney to take necessary steps to conclude the case, including acquiring a settlement release agreement. There's nothing in those words that require the city of Starkville to recognize and issue a proclamation in any month of the year, much less October. And we cannot act unless it's officially in the minutes. There's nothing in this motion as it is written, even if the board approved these minutes. There's nothing that orders, requires, and mandates the city of Starkville to proclaim January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, or December. There's nothing in here. Now, there's nothing that was passed in that motion on Friday, May 25, 2018, that says about an order dismissal. But of course, if you're going to conclude the case, all you have to do is an order dismissal. But there's nothing in there that says about the order dismissal. There's nothing in there to talk about a release and settlement agreement. Let me tell you from a lawyer's point of view what that means. I want everybody to listen to this. Now, if you're going to conclude the case, all you need is an order of dismissal so the case can end. Basically saying that this case shall be hereby dismissed with prejudice means that the case is gone permanently and forever. Now, let me tell you the lack of transparency as the vice mayor apparently sees it. First of all, the lack of transparency that this motion does not reflect what was recorded on Friday, May 25, 2018. Now, the lack of transparency is that release and settlement agreement. I want everybody to listen to this. What that does is it allows the lawyers to come up with an agreement that would reflect the terms of the parties. That's probably where that language is trying to go to about this LGBT month. There's been nothing on this board minutes that says that there's nothing says that we have to have a special month. There's nothing in the motion from Friday, May 25, 2018 says you have to have a release and settlement agreement. Why are you going to have a release and settlement agreement when the only thing that the board wants to pay the attorney fees, if that's what the majority wants to do? Let me make sure we get a good understanding of this legal discussion. To bring, even if the city wanted to bring this case to a conclusion, I've been practicing law for almost 30 years now. If the city wanted just to pay the $12,750 attorney fees, all is required is one thing, and that's an order of dismissal with prejudice. Why we say the words with prejudice? With prejudice in the legal terms means to dismiss the case forever, permanently. It cannot come back. Now, when you say here, once you do that, there's no other necessary step to take. So why are you going to execute a order dismissal with prejudice, including taking whatever steps is necessary? There's no other step to take. So what is the agenda? And it goes on to say, including executing a release and settlement agreement. What is so important about that agreement? Now listen to me now. You know, if the plaintiff has gotten all that they desire, and the only issue left was attorney fees, follow me through media and audience, all that they have left is attorney fees, and you're going to dismiss the case. Why you want to have a release and settlement agreement? What you going to put in there? A release and settlement agreement is an agreement that embodies terms, agreements, covenants, things that you agree to. And that release and settlement agreement is more than saying we're going to dismiss the case. Because if all you're going to do is dismiss the case, you don't need the release and settlement agreement. Are we trying to put a confidentiality clause that'll close the mouth of the city of Starkville and the plaintiff not to discuss it? Are they trying to keep other people from knowing about this, or we get sued in the future? Nobody can't talk about it? And moreover, where is the authority to enter into a release and settlement agreement? This language made it to the minutes after the meeting. I challenge anybody at this table to tell me differently. And don't call me out on it. Do not call me out on it because you don't want to go there. These minutes are not reflective. This motion is not reflective of what was recorded in the minutes. They are not reflective of what was recorded in the minutes as recorded on May 25, 2018. Period. Bottom line. So, if the board, the board was in such a rush to have this at a special call meeting, and the motion is still not right, in my legal opinion. If you got the votes to do it, let's have full transparency, full accountability, let the public know what you want to do. If you got the votes, do it. My comments are not personal to anybody. I'm not trying to attack anybody. I came here on July 6, 1993 doing my job. I'm going to leave here. I'm expecting at the end of this year, if I win the seat in November, doing my job as well. There's nothing personal. Nothing personal. But before I release this floor, these minutes need to be withdrawn. And if somebody wants to offer a motion to do what they want to do, then they need to offer the motion. Release and settlement agreement, who that was given to? When did that come about? What are the terms in the release and settlement agreement? I read in the newspaper that you got to proclaim October as LGBT month, and then a representative from the city got to meet with them and talk about equal citizenship and equal rights, as if we don't know what the Constitution means. You know, the Constitution is a very elementary reading. There's been no agreement to do anything along that. And the way that the motion was written, all that it says, the way the motion was recorded, all it says is based upon the proposed term. If there are no terms in the minutes, the board has not spoken. The city has not spoken. The city is silent and voiceless unless it speaks through the minute. That's why when you go to court, the judge wants to see the minutes. It does not want to hear other than testimony, but the only way we can officially speak, that's why we record the minutes. That's why we want to do that. Now, I'm going to release this floor in a few minutes, but I'm sure when I release it, there's going to be some comment after the vice mayor, some rebuttal. But I tell you one thing tonight, members of the public, those who are sitting in this room, to the media, to the press, those who are live streaming, those who are joining in, the vice mayor knows what he is talking about. If anybody want to call me on it, I can respond back legally. So, I think the best approach, if the board wants to do this, is to withdraw this motion from these minutes, or withdraw these minutes, and since there are apparently 4 votes to do it, just make your motion, let's move on. If you want to pay the $12,750, if you want to proclaim October, or whatever month of the year, all 12 of them, if that's what you want to do, make your motion. But it has to be on the agenda got to get amended. Now, in conclusion here is, so whoever speaks behind me, I'm not going to try to go back and forth. I'm sure maybe everybody in the room going to try to speak and try to say, well, the vice mayor wasn't there, but the vice mayor has been practicing law for 30 years, and I do my research. So, regardless of what may be said when I release the floor, I'm not going to go back and forth, and I'm not going to continue to talk about this tonight. And of course, I'll make myself available to the media after the meeting is over with, not individually. I'll do it collectively on this issue only. If there are any inquiries, if there's some strong rebuttal here. But I'm not going to go back and forth because we can do that. I'm trying to give these points out and hopefully we can move on. But this motion, as it is written in its entirety right here, was not recorded in the minutes on Friday, the 25th day of May of 2018. And you know, all we have to do is just be fully transparent and fully accountable. And I'm not trying to call anybody out. I'm just doing my job. When I was sworn in on about the 3rd of July of 2017, I'm sure we all are trying to do that, but nothing personal to anybody. But I'm just trying to do my job just like we all are. All 7 of us are trying to do our job, and we just bring different backgrounds and perspective to the board. And I'm just being an attorney. I think law 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When I rarely sleep. I'm working all the time. My mind's always thinking law. So I've said what I got to say. Mr. Reporters, my information is credible, my research is credible, and I can back it up. Mayor, you have the floor.
May I be recognized?
Mr. Miller.
I'd like for the city clerk, Ms. Lisa Harden, in looking at those minutes, do you have the attendance at that meeting?
I do not have the roll with, I don't have the notes with me, but I do, well, I'm sorry, it is on the front of the minutes. Sorry, it is right here, it's recorded in the minutes.
Could you read those who attended?
Present were Mayor DeLynn Spruill, Alderman Ben Carver, Sandra Sistrunk, David Little, Jason Walker, and Patrick Miller. Alderman Roy A. Perkins and Henry Vaughn Sr. were absent.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, the motion was made by Sistrunk, correct? And I have the second?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, in my attendance at the meeting, I can attest that the minutes are reflective and correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Any other discussion? Alderman Vaughn?
If those minutes were made Friday, why they not in my package? What you just read, why it's not in my package? It's not in my package at all. Where are they?
They should be in there, sir.
Well, I'll pass them out to you. Let's look at them and show them to me.
minutes are not,
Trying to-
the minutes are not in your packet.
No, it's not. Not what she just read is not in there. And Mr. Attorney, what are the 4 points that I'm missing, not in my package, about all this other, what other 4 points?
Alderman Vaughn, I believe that what is recited in Section 5 of the minutes is an accurate recitation of the final action taken by the Board of Aldermen on May 25th, and that is that the board approved the settlement of the lawsuit. They approved the $12,000, $750 in attorney fees.
That's 1 point, right?
They approved the order of dismissal, entering into an order of dismissal with prejudice, and they approved me entering into a release and settlement agreement with the plaintiff, which is a standard release document. And I can attest to the board and anybody who's listening that that has nothing to do, and there's no language in that release and settlement agreement about any type of proclamation or any type of liaison activity. You know, under the statute, it's up to the minutes to reflect an accurate recording of any final actions taken. And those settlement terms were enumerated in the board meeting. And Alderman Sistrunk said, I move to approve those negotiated terms. And so those terms are written in Section 5 of these minutes, and I believe they're accurate and true as a recitation of the final action of the Board of Aldermen on May 25th.
May I recognize Mayor?
Just a moment, I thought I saw
One
a hand
more
down.
question. One question.
Alderman Vaughn, did
How,
you yield the floor?
how did the press pick up that October was gonna be an annual month for LBGT? Where did that come from? How did that come in the
It
press?
came from me,
It came from you?
yes.
What, are we in the
No,
process?
the board is not, the mayor is. I do proclamations all the time. Individually, I do proclamations all the time as the mayor.
What else with that proclamation?
It's just, that's it. I haven't even got the language for it yet.
You haven't drafted language for it.
I'm sorry, I don't have the language for it yet.
What before us tonight is just to prove this $12,700, right?
Correct.
$750, that's what before us tonight.
Correct.
I yield the floor.
Ms. Sistrunk, did I see? Okay. No?
Have we fully discussed this, and do we want to continue this in a?
Ma'am, so you can be recognized.
I understand, Ms. Sistrunk is.
I'm trying to decide, I'd like for us to go and
No.
let Vice Mayor Perkins
No.
have
Okay,
the floor.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
One executive
Mayor, I got
session.
one question. In light of the inquiries about what the minutes said and what was said at the meeting, I'm going to ask one question, and I'm sure I'm going to get a truthful answer as always. And if I don't get a truthful answer, then it's going to require further question. And my question is as follows. And this question is in light of my colleagues and the city attorney saying what was recorded at the meeting. And Ms. Harden, you take the minutes of these of all the board meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
And Ms. Harden, is this true or false? That the minutes that you recorded for motion number 5 on May 25, 2018 states that motion offered by the lady from 2, second by the gentleman from 5, that I move that the settlement of the prior litigation be based upon the proposed terms. Is that the language you had in your notes?
Yes, sir, that's what I wrote in my notes.
A year, Mayor.
Alderman Carver.
As far as executive session, I'll be voting against that. I think most everybody up on this side of the table voted, or campaigned on the idea of transparency, and I don't know if, at this point, what's the point of executive session? So I'll be voting against it. It is a tough decision, but we are all in attendance, and even Alderman Little telephonically, so I think this needs to be a public decision, a public discussion, so thank you.
Okay, well, we've had the discussion, the minutes are up. Do we have any, Alderman Walker?
I'll say I agree with Alderman Carver in the sense that I was at this meeting, and I have no problem with people that weren't there. But I was at this meeting, and I voted to settle the case based on what was presented by the city attorney and the role there. And I want to be as open and transparent, and I want these minutes to be reflective of what was there. And I am not a lawyer. I haven't been practicing law for 30 years. I am relying on the city attorney to help guide me as a member of this board in saying, is this a fair and accurate and reflective recording of the minutes based on what was filed in the executive session? I have no issue if we want to talk about the settlement or whatever. I just want to make sure it's accurate, it's open, and it's transparent, and that we approve the settlement. If the language needs to change to make it open and transparent, then I say we do what we need to do. But if this does it, I'm ready to settle this, and let's move on to the next item.
No, I'm sorry. Alderman Sistrunk.
And I'd like to say that I was in the meeting too, and we had what I thought was a robust and full discussion of the items that were in the proposed settlement, and I have no problems with these minutes reflecting what we agreed to in the executive session that day. And I too am open to changing any verbiage that needs to be changed, but I believe this is an accurate assessment of what happened that day, and I'm ready to vote and move forward as well.
Alderman Carver, I see your hand.
I just wanted to recognize the city attorney had his hand up. Did you have
Yes,
something
I was gonna get to him.
Yeah.
No, Alderman Walker mentioned transparency, and I think that's the point of these minutes, is to accurately and in a transparent way, enumerate the terms of the settlement. So that's what the attempt was to do. The terms of the settlement was recapped before Alderman Sistrunk made her vote. Immediately after the terms of the settlement were recapped, she moved to approve those negotiated terms. This motion, listed in the minutes, enumerates the negotiated terms that she moved to approve. So I think they're accurate and true.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, oops.
Roll
Nope. If you would, please answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver,
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk,
Yay.
Alderman Little,
Yay.
Alderman Walker,
Yay.
Alderman Miller,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
One question before I give mine. What all are we approving now? Is it just the $12,750? That's all we're approving?
No, Alderman, you're approving what's in the minutes. You're approving the $12,000.
What's all in the minute? Nothing but the $12,750. That's all in the minute.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't have your copy. Let me just read it one more time.
Yes.
I got that, but
It's the $12,750 in attorney fees, and it's an agreed order of dismissal with prejudice.
what agreement coming behind this? That's what I want to know, that who all was in the meeting with attorney with this agreement? What coming behind this agreement? That's what I want to know.
Sure,
That's my question, keep asking you, what is coming behind this agreement? And I know more than $7,500 coming behind this agreement.
No, sir. No, this agreement.
Please, I told y'all, I don't like secrets. I told you, don't play with me like this. Stop doing stuff like this. I asked y'all over and over, don't give me no secrets. I'm tired of these secrets.
There's
Every
no-
other board meeting, come up and got a bunch of secrets, got hidden agendas. Stop the hidden agendas and be telling the truth about it.
We need a vote.
What-
Nay.
Thank you.
Mayor, I want to address this concern
Well,
because
let's
Sick of all
close
this.
this out and then we
Why
can.
we can't be true with one another? That's what we elected for, to be true and honor with the public. That's what we here for.
What is not true, Alderman?
I'm not talking to you. I have the floor.
Guys, let's stop. Let's stop.
Alderman Vaughn, I do want to address your comments because I've never hidden anything from you in my life. And
That's a lie.
It's not true.
That's a lie.
Well,
Let me
That's
finish.
a lie.
Let's finish this out. We have a motion, we have a vote. The motion passes 4-3. The minutes are approved. Okay? All right, we have the consideration of the minutes of the May 25th, 2018 budget work session meeting of the mayor of the Board of Aldermen of the city of Starkville. That too was removed from consent. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Walker. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Alderman Miller. Further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please. Answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver,
Nay.
Alderman Sistrunk,
Yay.
Alderman Little,
Yay.
Alderman Walker,
Yay.
Alderman Miller,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
By a vote of 4-3, those minutes are approved. Okay, under mayor's comments, we have some new employees to introduce. I have to get my little sheet out here, my little cheat sheet out here. We have 2 new employees. Mr. Javier Clay is a maintenance worker 2 for the street department. Mr. Clay? Mr. Clay is from Starkville and is a graduate of Starkville High School. Prior to joining the city of Starkville, Javier worked for Vaughn Masonry as a bricklayer. During his free time, he enjoys playing basketball and spending time with his son, Jason. Is that correct? Okay, all right. Well, welcome, Mr. Clay. We appreciate having you here. Thank you for being with us. And we have one other, payroll clerk, Mary Ivy. And she will be in the city clerk's office. Mary Ivy is originally from Lafayette, Indiana. She attended Wood Junior College, where she majored in equestrian science. Mary also obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from Mississippi State University. She worked for the past 12 years as an accountant for Gulf States Manufacturing. During her spare time, Mary enjoys raising, training, and showing Tennessee walking horses and spending time with her husband Dwight and her daughter Megan Ivy Jones. Please welcome Mary Ivy and wish her a happy birthday. She took the time to come here. Hope you go enjoy yourself on your birthday. All right, thank you for being with us. All righty, and I have no further comments. Do I have any comments from the Board of Aldermen? Alderman Vaughn.
I would like to thank the West Main organization for the hard work that y'all did continuously. You didn't give up on changing Beatty Street to Roosevelt Taylor Street. I thank y'all so much for not giving up. You see, when you can do things together. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ that strengthened me. When you never let nothing turn you away, you can achieve your goal. Thank y'all so much for your continuous support and your continuous fight to get what your goal was after you.
Was that it, Alderman Vaughn?
Yes.
Okay.
One more.
Sir?
Thank you again for the security light, but I'm hoping that your intent is to make sure that you put them in every park, not just that park, because I know vandalism goes on in all these parks, but it never surfaces up, but nowhere but on that side of town. So please, don't just make that town like it's a bad side of town and nothing going on at McKee. I know something going on McKee. I know something going on all the other parks. But I hope your idea and your plans are that you put cameras at all these parks. I hope that's your plan.
Absolutely. It's just a matter of funding, and we're working on finding the funding.
Please don't let the funding be too long, because
absolutely.
the citizens on that side of town, it wants to know that's what it's going to be. Please don't let the funding be too long, because it won't be fair if you just stick it to that side of town and it won't stick it to the other side of town.
No, absolutely. In fact, Joel, where are you? Where'd you go? Would you give us just a real quick on where the cameras are right now and what our plans are? That way
Sure,
we'll.
I'll be glad to. We have many cameras throughout town. We have 2 in the Cotton District right now. Of course, the one at J.L. King Park. We've worked with the police department to guide us and where we should put that. And the fact is, that's a test unit. It's a demo unit that a vendor has allowed us to use to see the capabilities of it. And we just happened to acquire that just by happenstance the week after that vandalism. So they said, how about we put that up there? Just let's take a look and see what it looks like. But we do have them throughout town. There's about 7 or 8 of them that are currently active. 2 on Main Street, like I said, 2 in the Cotton District. So they're spread out pretty evenly right now, and we have a few. We'd like to get a lot more, and we are working through the grant process right now to try to get that funding, because we think that can help be a force multiplier in the law enforcement community.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. Thank you, Alderman.
Mayor,
Yes.
be recognized.
Alderman Miller?
Yeah, I wanted the record to show and request that at the July 3rd meeting, I believe it's July 3, that first board meeting in July, we'll be 1 year out, essentially minus a couple days from our 1 year of this term. I think it's important. We have other cities that do it as well, or I've seen other cities that do it, that we have as a board, the 7 of us together, including the mayor, that we have a performance evaluation for our department heads, both positive and negative, and look at our goals that we set from that first meeting, see where we're at, and how we can improve. I'd like to do that.
Okay. All right. Do you want to do that in a meeting or a work session?
I'd like to do it in a meeting.
Okay. All right. We'll set it up that way. All right. Anything else? Any other board comments? Mr. Carver?
At the Sportsplex, Thursday night at 6 o'clock, if you're a constituent of Ward 1 or really any ward in town, we're gonna have a water quality control meeting, I guess is the proper term, Mr. Kent, but he's gonna come in with himself and a couple other individuals from that department and tell us how water's collected, if you've got any brown water issues, if you've got anything you wanna discuss. It's just gonna be really informative. I'm looking forward to it. I know we've had a lot of talks recently of infrastructure. We're gonna touch on those and how this came to be. So if you want to come, it's Thursday night at the Sportsplex, 6 to 7 o'clock. I envision it being about an hour long. But I told anybody, if some people in my neighborhood have had a lot of brown water issues, to capture some of that in a clean, clear mason jar and bring it. And then we're going to have just some talks on pH levels and acidity and chlorine and those kind of things. So very informative. Thursday, June the 7th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Sportsplex.
Okay, we'll put that out on our website too, please.
Sure, please.
Absolutely, we'll tweet out about it. Okay, all right. Any other comments by the board? All right, thank you. Next up, citizens' comments.
I have one that I'd like to come forward and give, please. Good evening to everyone. Just like to say good evening. You may not say good evening to me, but I have to say good evening to you. Okay, I'd just like to say to my Aldermen.
Ms. Isaac, we all know who you are. Would you just identify yourself because we have the Facebook?
I'm North Isaac.
Thank you, ma'am.
Everybody know that, and I'm from Viceville. From here, but I'm from all y'all. I can't say that only Viceville represent me. But I would just like to say, as I sit here and listen about the students, I would just like to tell each and every one of y'all, you were elected by the citizens. Quit having these private meetings. I can say that. They were private. I couldn't come up there and speak my mind, but my name is on that suit. So I want y'all to know, my name was on that suit, and I don't like it for what was said, for what I said. I'm here to represent myself. I'm here to represent what goes on in the city because I'm a voter. You see what's been happening in the news about all of this, LBG and all of this stuff going on, and everybody knows. Be careful, because if that suit don't come up, it may come up for me. I'm tired of being disrepresented here in this city. And you can stand, you can look, and you can freeze, but what he said, Vice Mayor said, is correct. And I would just like to say, I'm a citizen, I'm a voting citizen, so you might dismiss that suit, but you might be looking for another one. And you still ain't came over by rolling hills to do anything. So let's go about what you was elected to do. Go back and let's see what's going on. That's all I would just like to say. I could say a lot, but I'm not gonna say any more tonight. But I am tired of the way we've been represented. We got two down here, and when they vote, everybody else vote against them, and then they have a special meeting. I wanna tell you what the meeting is, but I ain't gonna tell you right here. I'll tell you later. I wanna tell you what it is, but I think you know what it is. I think all of you know. And I'm saying, you were elected by the citizens. Bring the meeting back here. Don't take it upstairs when you want to meet and have a special call meeting on something, because it represents me. My name is on this suit also, and I don't like it. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Ms. Isaac.
Good evening to the board. Good evening to the board. My name is Allen Turner,
Good evening, Mr.
Ward
Turner.
7. To the police department and to the NACP president for our safety. Mom taught me some facts of life to live by. She taught me that don't throw a rock and hide your hand. Don't feed yourself a rope and hang your own self. That just was some facts of life, of things that she wanted me to live by. I take medication. I take 100 milligrams twice a day, 50 milligrams once a day to even out my epilepsy. And I take 40 milligrams for my cholesterol. they had some old songs back in the day that kept us together. I'd rather old days have songs said the love of money. Jerry Butler said only the strong survive. Joe Simon said it be that way sometimes. But it's getting to the point, it'll be a year before July, it'll be 2 years before July coming that my brother was shot. Now, sometimes when you want to catch someone, you think like them. We've been hearing that that night, that morning that he was shot, it sounded like a firecracker. So I talked to a couple guys, and they said that some guns do sound like firecrackers. So we would be at ease if we knew some guns that you could shoot and it sound like a firecracker. My mom just had pneumonia, and she doing good, but then she got to do some therapy. So I'm gonna leave after my comments because my sister needs her brother with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Mayor Spruill.
Alderman Vaughn?
Do anyone from the Main Street Association, West Main Street Association like to say anything? Would anyone from the West Main Street like to say?
Yes,
Come on.
my name is Lawrence Taylor, and I'm the son of Mr. Roosevelt Taylor, and those are my two sisters right there, and that's Mr. Emily Lovely, the president. And I would like to thank the mayor and the board of aldermen, Alderman Vaughn, and everyone in the neighborhood or in the community that put forth the time and effort in renaming the street in my father's name. And we highly, highly appreciate it. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
By the way, Mr. Taylor is 92 years old and still living. 93.
All right, anyone else? Any other citizens' comments? Mr. Molinax?
My name is Richard Molinax, and I live in Ward 5 on 112 East Point Drive. And my comment is for Roman numeral 8. I'm assuming this would be the proper time to make that
Yes,
comment.
sure, if you like. This is fine.
Is this for the parking? Mr.
Yes.
Molinax?
There's
If
a
you can make
public,
it,
there's a public hearing, but if you'd like to make citizens' comments, you certainly
you can
may.
make it now, Dr.
Okay.
Molinax, if you want.
All right, I'm in favor of the parking ordinance because it's a step forward in protecting the integrity of all our neighborhoods. And that's simply put, but I understand there's a lot of discussion going to occur before all this happens. But I am in support of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. We will close the
Yep.
citizens' comments.
One more.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. I apologize. Okay.
I'm Christina Kilcrease, and I live on West Main Street in the older part of town. We have two houses now that are 4-bedroom, 4-bath houses that are being rented on Raymond Street, that are being rented by 4 individuals each. The parking for each one of those houses is maybe 2 cars on property. So that means that Raymond Street, sometimes you can't get down Raymond Street because it's there, even though the signs are up there, and thank you, Mr. Vaughn, for getting the signs. They're parked on both sides of the street. So the new ordinance for parking for new construction, he and I don't agree with much. We have 500 square foot apartment, and a couple would love to have that apartment. But it's 2 cars. And we won't allow that because it's inadequate parking for that apartment. And so the older part of town, even people down on the lower part of West Main, have trouble with that also. So that the older part of town needs to have something done with the parking. Also allowing people to park in their yards. Have y'all been to college towns where they allow that all the time? And who's going to regulate it? Who's going to go out and say, as a landowner, I'm going to say, you've parked on the lawn 2 or 3 times this year. You're not doing it again. But our absentee landowners are not going to do that. You know it. I know it. And you have to fight to keep the students off of your yards. Up to y'all.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Now I'll close it as citizen comments, and we'll go to public appearances. We have 2 public appearances this evening. One of them is for the Starkville Area Arts Council. Mr. Bateman, I believe, there you are.
Thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm John Bateman. If you haven't met me, I'm the first Executive Director for the Starkville Area Arts Council. And I'm here for 2 purposes. One is to thank the city's support for us during our current fiscal year, which is actually about to end in June 30th, and also to report on what we've been up to and create an open dialogue if I have not met you and you've not met me. We've received last year, well, the current year that's about to end, we've received a $3,500 grant from the city, as well as roughly $10,000 estimated in-kind support from the city for police, sanitation, and fire in support of the Cotton District Arts Festival, which has been a tremendous help for both the festival and the community and the Arts Council. Our mission is to build a strong, creative, connected community through art, and we do that through a number of programs. I'm not going to go through all of those for you tonight, but I will highlight some of the things that are my favorite that I think really help us create this community that we're looking for. One of them is our Art Partners program, which we recently relaunched. It's a free extracurricular after-school art classes, relaunched with Sudeth Extended Day. And currently, we've supported up to 15 first and second graders with these additional extracurricular activities taught by a local working artist. Art in the Park is our fall festival for children. It's free, it's vendor-free, admission-free, and it's a family-oriented event where this past fall, 300 children with their families came out on a really muggy, gross day, but got a lot of hands-on experiences. And one of the comments, we started taking informal feedback from attendees, and one of the parents at this year's Art in the Park noted that because of last year's Art in the Park, their kid now takes violin lessons. And what we are learning is that at Art in the Park, it's the first chance that a lot of these children have to get exposed to, whether it's drums, other artists, working with clay. We have a writer booth, a photography booth, and that event was started actually in collaboration with Del Rendon Foundation and a lot of area artists. It relies heavily on in-kind donations of art supplies. We probably receive about $6,000 of art supplies donated for that event. One of the things that we do is we also re-grant money. We give grants to fund projects, teachers, and other organizations in the Starkville area, and that includes Oktibbeha County as well. One of the things that we do are micro grants to teachers. This past year we gave about $5,000 in micro grants to teachers that include Oktibbeha County Consolidated School District, Starkville Christian Schools, and Starkville Academy. Homeschool co-ops are also eligible for those. Sometimes we get grant applications from those, and sometimes we don't. Summer scholarships are a program that we do that is actually fairly unique. I've worked with grant-making and scholarship-making foundations for over a decade, and our summer scholarships are an opportunity for kids to obtain extracurricular programming through the summer. So if you're a kid in school and you attend music class or choir during the school year, summer hits, and if you have 2 working parents and you're not able to afford private lessons, our summer scholarship program will allow you to do that. So for example, Starkville Strings, which is a fairly new arts organization here in town, to get lessons for them through the summer. This is an estimate that she quoted me, but that would be $360 for the summer. This year, we were able to offer up to almost $400 for some of our outstanding students. It's both need and merit-based. And of course, the Cotton District Arts Festival. So I do want to provide a little bit of report on the Cotton District Arts Festival. This year was probably our most successful we've ever had. We had our vendors, we had 138 artisan vendors, 18 food vendors, and their gross revenue, we get zero of this, their gross revenue for that day was $194,000 in sales. That generated over $14,000 in sales taxes that goes to the state, a portion of which comes back to the Starkville community through the 2% food tax. According to the partnership, there are the Greater Starkville Development Partnership. There are 1,001 hotel rooms in this whatever the Starkville district is. I do not know the boundaries for that. Those were booked at capacity for 3 nights over Super Bulldog weekend. At capacity means probably 90% occupancy. Again, that's according to the partnership. And at the festival, we pay the musicians who play. We paid over $6,000 in stipends to the musicians, and we paid an additional $7,500 to artists in prizes for their merit and participation in the festival. Goals. What are the goals for the Arts Festival? My preference is I want to see ongoing activities that are at 0 to low admission. So that would be art in the park, art partners, gallery shows. If we can give grants to fund free tickets to cultural events, public art funding, and of course the Cotton District Arts Festival, which is admission free. Increased educational opportunities that have a lasting impact, so our summer scholarships. I believe that if we can help create access for youth to arts programs at a younger age, we're creating a stronger, longer lasting impact because we give them that experience, we help them get that experience at a younger age, and the ongoing experience so they're not just relying on what's available in the schools during the school year. As well as, let's keep talented creative artists here. Let's continue making Starkville a destination town. And then events like this where I come report to you guys once a year, or if you want to meet with me, greater transparency with what we're doing and what we're doing with funding that we get, not just from the city, from grants that we receive, but also our donors as well. And so I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank again the city, the board, and the aldermen, and of course, the police were fantastic at the Cotton District Arts Festival, and so we can't say their accolades enough. And thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Do we have any questions? Alderman Miller.
I just wanted to say that I think what y'all do is great, and keep up the good work. It is a huge contribution to the city, and I always look at it in terms of the arts as being a huge part of our economic development. And it's something that is very important to this city, and something that I support, and anything I can ever do to help y'all, be more than happy to. And the arts and engaging in our history in Oktibbeha County, all of those things create a sense of place for the city of Starkville. And when y'all put on events like that, it's one of those times a year when people come to that festival, they know they're in Starkville, Mississippi. So good job. Appreciate y'all, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Alderman Muller.
Anything else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, second public appearance is Mr. Cheney. Mr. Cheney, if you come forward. You have 10 minutes, okay?
Good evening. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening, and just take a few minutes of your time. I'm here under a public appearance because I wanted to be sure and able to speak to you concerning my support of updating the city's parking ordinances in residential areas. Changes are definitely needed. We've been having traffic problems in our neighborhood for some time, but it seems like it has become worse in the last 6 months. My late wife and I moved into our neighborhood almost 25 years ago. It's always been a safe, quiet place to raise a family. But since then, it has become largely rental property, which comes an increase in vehicles, creating more violations, including parking and others. And
now, due to the increased traffic and individuals violating traffic and parking laws, you have to be extremely cautious to let kids ride their bikes, stroll your baby, or walk your dog. When these traffic problems became dangerous situations, I took a closer look at the city's traffic and parking ordinances to see just what the actual codes were. And I found that parking regulations can also be found under nuisances because it's considered that it can be offensive to the senses, unlawfully interferes with the operation of the street, interferes with the enjoyment of property, or depreciates the value of the property of others. And I found that several parking ordinances in particular were being violated, specifically blocking a fire hydrant, boats on the street and in front yards, parking on both sides, not allowing enough space for traffic to move both ways, and blocking driveways or obstructing view of an intersection. Because of the need, some designated parking signs were put up on one stretch of our street. I live on Hillside Drive, which has decreased some of these violations, but only on that part of the street where the signs were put up. And violations still continue to occur in the rest of the neighborhood. We are concerned about our property values being adversely affected because of all the vehicles and boats in the street and in the yards. To give you an example of a continuing problem, I live on a dead end, and one night I counted 14 vehicles at one house across from me, and they were stretched all the way across the street, including the middle of the street, which totally blocks the street. Now, this type of parking interferes with city vehicles, delivery vehicles, and postal vehicles. Just because it's a dead end, it is still covered by the same laws as the rest of the street, making that a misuse of a public street, not to mention dangerous if there had been a fire or medical emergency. I hate to think what would have happened if that situation had occurred. And several of these vehicles stayed until the next day. And we desperately need our city ordinances updated to keep our neighborhood from becoming totally congested with vehicles. I just want everyone to be able to live there, walk there, let their kids and animals be safe. I have to be very careful walking my dog now because along with the parking problem, there is a total disregard for traffic violations, including speed limit and not stopping at a stop sign. I know our police department can't be everywhere at once, and they do a great job. But when it becomes a danger to those who live there, I feel that we have an obligation as homeowners and taxpayers to do something about it. All I'm asking is that we expect those who live there to obey our traffic laws just like those of us who do. Whatever it takes to increase the safety of the neighborhoods due to speeding, parking, or running a stop sign, then we should be willing to do it. Now, like I said, our officers can't be everywhere at once. But when we have to do something because of those who don't drive safely or park in a safe and unobtrusive manner, my only reason for speaking to you and asking for your help is because I'm genuinely concerned about the safety of all who live there, the value of our homes, and making sure that those who need to be more concerned remember that these ordinances are for everyone's well-being and protection, including their own. Because it only takes a second for a traffic violation to result in injury or worse to themselves or someone else. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and the other homeowners and myself sincerely hope that you do see the need to update these ordinances along with proper enforcement, because it's not only a matter of violation of property and safety, it's just the right thing to do. I would like to thank Alderman Miller for his help and concern, and Mr. Kemp and Alderman Miller for having signs put up, and the Chief Nichols for the increased police presence in the neighborhood. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. All right. Next up for us will be, we have a first public hearing on the discussion of this ordinance Mr. Cheney was referencing. And Mr. Haviland, if you would come make a presentation, please, sir, on this ordinance.
Starkville is a university town with a lot of rental business. The rentals range from multifamily complexes to single-family homes. We recognize this as a legitimate sector of our local economy, and the intention of this ordinance is not to limit those people's livelihoods. The intention is to protect the property values of those adjacent property owners and character of the neighborhood in the city of Starkville. The intent of this ordinance is not to excessively burden homeowners with costly conformance standards. This all came about on December 11th of last year. City staff met with residents of Ward 5 to hear some of their concerns in their neighborhood. One of the consistent issues was the use of single-family houses as rental properties to college students. After discussing this in greater depth, one of the main problems was the parking created by this rental of single-family homes. The existing houses don't have enough parking within the driveway to accommodate the number of residents within the house. The result is parking in the front yard and within the street. Although street parking is allowed in most areas of the city, the issue is parking on both sides of the street and reducing the functionality of the drive-out. The intent of this proposed ordinance is to take the pressure off the on-street parking and not to eliminate street parking because it serves a legitimate purpose. The issue with residents parking in the front yard and storage of recreational vehicles has been a consistent complaint with the code enforcement and city staff. These complaints have come in from nearly every ward and is not an isolated issue to Ward 5. After meeting with the residents of Ward 5, we began to research residential parking regulations in comparable cities in Mississippi. We found that Tupelo, Hattiesburg, Oxford, Ridgeland, Brandon all have regulations for parking in the front yard. And the reasons these cities were kind of chosen is Tupelo's kind of the largest city in our region. And then obviously Hattiesburg and Oxford are dealing with the same issue with the college student rentals. And Ridgeland and Brandon are comparable in size. As you can see on this slide, these are images that were pulled off the internet. All of this, everything that's shown in this image with the parking of the cars in the yard, the camper storage, and the boat is allowed by our ordinance. The current ordinance, the two sections of the current ordinance that are being proposed to change are sections A and sections B. Section A is in need of an update due to its reference to C3 zoning, which is no longer in use. That was replaced by the T districts. And then also an additional requirement to drive-out dimensions being approved as part of the site plan review is also being proposed. Section B of the current ordinance regulates the numbers of required parking spaces for residential property. These regulations use the square footage of structures to determine the required spaces. The problem is that it does not address the parking for each resident within the rental unit. So as an example, the maximum number of spaces required is 3. You could have a house built with 5 bedrooms and 5 baths, and if it's a rental unit, then you're gonna have at least 5 tenants. So that would, should need 5 parking spots. Even if the 5-bedroom house was occupied by a family with 3 children, at some point in time, the 3 children will be of driving age and will probably necessitate the need for more parking, more than 3 spaces. Section B addresses the required spaces, off-street parking requirements, storage of recreational vehicles and equipment, and exceptions to the requirements and variance process from the requirements. One of the immediate suggestions we have to the proposed ordinance that's put in front of you would be to make the number of required spaces for new construction or extensively renovated property only. You can see I've kind of added it up here in the red. Existing structures would not have to add parking spaces based on bedrooms, but would have to meet all other requirements, such as parking on the grass, storage of RVs, and equipment. The number of required spaces, as mentioned before, are determined by the number of bedrooms. For single family and duplex, it would be 1 space per bedroom. For multifamily, 3 units or more, 1 1/4 space per bedroom. That would help account for, the friend of the residents that comes to visit. All parking spaces shall be on a hard surface and is not permitted to be in the lawn area of the front yard. Hard surface is defined as concrete, asphalt, gravel, and pavers. Driveways will be limited to a 20-foot width at the street. This requirement is intended to keep the property owner from paving the entire front yard for safety. The last requirement of this section is that all gravel driveways have a concrete apron as it approaches the road, and the intent of that is to keep the gravel from being deposited into the street. Recreational vehicles and equipment are also addressed in this proposal. The storage of boats, campers, utility trailers, etc. in the front yard and/or driveway of existing residential property causes displacement for vehicles for daily use. This compounds the issue of parking in a lawn area of the front yard, which can have a negative impact on property values in the neighborhood. RVs and equipment are proposed to only be stored in the side and rear yard. Parking of RVs and equipment is prohibited in the streets for a period of time exceeding 24 hours. RVs cannot be used as permanent living quarters, but can be used as short-term sleeping quarters for a maximum of 3 nights on an MSU home game weekend. This is something similar to what the city of Oxford does. And then the 24-hour requirement is to allow people who own the RVs a chance to pull them up front, to load them up for a trip, or to unload them without being an immediate violation. Proposed exceptions for the proposed ordinance address private events, home games, weekends, and construction activities. Private event parking shall be permitted in the lawn area of the front yard for a maximum of 12 hours. This would be for an event like if you had a wedding shower or a birthday party, small get-together with an excessive amount of cars. Parking is also permitted in the front yard during home game weekends for residents to accommodate for out-of-town guests. Utility trailers and storage containers are permitted in the front yard of any residential property with an active building permit. So if you're in the process of doing construction, of course you can have the equipment there necessary to complete it. In an attempt to not overly burden the residents that cannot physically comply with requirements of this ordinance, the variance process is clearly listed as part of this ordinance. And to help reduce the number of requests that are considered minor, the planning department have the discretion to approve any deviation of 10% or less. So if somebody's not hitting the total parking requirement for a multifamily, and they're within 10%, if it appears that it's not going to create an issue to the development review committee, then we can propose to approve that. All other variance requests will be processed through the existing variance process and notified accordingly. Now for the impacts of this proposed ordinance can be divided into 2 categories: new construction and existing construction. New construction, the additional parking for each bedroom should prevent the need for parking in a lawn area of the front yard in the future. Additionally, space for RV and equipment can be planned at the beginning of the project. For existing structures, parking in a lawn area and storage of RVs and equipment in the front yard will need to end. In most cases, it will just be a simple rearrangement of where residents currently park. In some cases, additional hard surface parking will need to be added on site. RVs and other equipment will need to be moved to either the side or the rear yard. And I've created this graphic to kind of show you illustrations of what's going on. The image at the top left, the problem here is that the vehicles that are parking are attempting not to block each other in, so you have a resident that ends up in the street. And directly below it is a possible solution. You could have the little area out to the left of the drive that could be gravel, concrete, any hard surface material. And then also it is allowed current code for parking in the street if it's allowed on that side of the street. Similarly, the second image is showing the boat parked in the front yard, and then showing that the boat is then moved to the side yard, freeing up space for another car to park. The image in the middle is a common problem that you see in a lot of college rentals where they'll have some sort of recreational vehicle and they have it in the driveway that it forces other cars to park in the yard. Solutions to that, you know, this case it's just as simple as putting it in a carport and adding extra paved areas for the car. And these are just general examples. It's hard to really apply it to every scenario. The image at the top here is showing an RV that's parked on the side and a car in the yard. And this is a solution that would cost $0, is to move the RV to the side of the house and then to park the car into the front. And then lastly, it's just showing kind of a similar scenario to before. The boat's kind of displacing the other cars, but the boat here is parked in the carport, which would be a permissible area. And then showing the option, another option of having a circle driveway to have extra space to park a car. One of the questions we were asked initially about this was how would we notify residents of these proposed changes? We came up with sort of a list of ways to try to get the word out if this were to go forward. One would be to place a copy of the text of the ordinance with supporting graphics similar to something like this. Illustrate the requirements of the utility bill. Place several ads in the paper explaining the requirements. Use of social media, trying to get the word out about the requirements. Some other options would be to place a poster with information about the ordinance with supporting graphics at local businesses like a grocery store, convenience store, obviously with the owner's permission. And then meet with various community leaders, civics groups, professional organizations about the ordinance. They could help explain the ordinance to people in their community. A professional group could be like a group of realtors who is meeting with clients on a regular basis and meeting with people. They could kind of explain what the requirements are in the area prior to selling the house. And then lastly, once the ordinance has been adopted, the policy for code enforcement could be implemented for dealing with this ordinance for a specific period of time. For example, to have a 1-year grace period kind of established when it's first adopted. During that first year, property owners and tenants would be notified of violations with a warning. The warning would be issued, would have an information packet with it that would explain what they should be doing as opposed to what they did wrong. And then after the 1-year period is up, then they could be given a citation. But as part of adopting that policy, we would also need to know what citation, what the penalty would be prior, so you can kind of the carrot and the stick at the same time. And is there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howell. Any questions of Mr. Howell?
Got a couple?
Alderman Clark.
To lead this discussion. I've been told in the last 9 years, I've got a lot of this situation. A couple of neighborhoods I represent are ranch style. Oftentimes they're single driveways. I personally don't like the, and sometimes it's homeowners, not just renters, but they'll pull a car onto a grass surface, and over time, especially wintertime, it gets muddy and ruts the yard up. So I was always told that the code enforcement office, if somebody wanted to park in a public street, they could park anywhere they wanted to. They could go park in front of the neighbor's house. I've had that instance where they'll get into a neighborly feud and they do that. So if it's a taxpayer funded city street, and the city attorney may have to answer this, is this something that would actually be able to stop and enforce parking anywhere? I mean,
Parking in the street is allowed up to 72 hours, I believe. And the way I was referencing it here is if it's allowable on that particular street, like if there's parking on this side or that side or too close to the corner.
so the same situation where we've had cars for years on end, as long as they've got a current tag, 4 tires that are aired up. I've been trying to get these same cars.
They haven't moved in 72 hours.
They move them an inch, and as long as they move them an inch and move them back 72 hours later, they can continue to do that.
Unless you put no parking, you want a no parking sign.
I see a lot of people just leave third and fourth vehicles. The other problem I say with this is, since since this conversation started, is dated houses, and I know this is specifically for new construction, but oftentimes in the 60s and 70s, you had a family of four with only maybe a driver or two. Now that same four may have 5 or 6 vehicles. So I think times have changed. I have a lot of people telling me, and you and I spoke at length about this. In some situations, people have 2 and 3 and 4 acre lots, and they've always had their RVs and their trailers and their ATVs and everything parked over there, and nobody complains about it. So my preference would maybe to see this be complaint driven. Some neighborhoods it's accepted. I think Alderman Miller listed a couple that it's generally people park them out of the way, and it's the way it's always been, and nobody complains. There's other areas in towns, high density, that this is a bigger issue. So those are some of the things I'm hearing out on the street, and I don't know how we draw that into this discussion tonight. He and I had started a pretty lengthy discussion the last couple of days of this, and I want to probably ask you some more questions publicly, but it's, to see some of these things, that's kind of what I was alluding to. Is this something y'all want to see complaint driven, or is now the city gonna go around looking for people that are parking boats in the yard?
I would imagine just with the amount of staffing we have in code enforcement now, that it would probably be mainly complaints. I don't imagine them having enough time on their hands to drive every single neighborhood and make note of every single violation every single time.
Sure.
Not saying that they wouldn't do that.
Let's not say that we're not going to be enforcing our codes.
I'm not saying we're not gonna be enforcing it, I'm just saying complaint driven is what's gonna draw their attention to it.
Any other discussion with Mr. Hamlin and before we open it as a public hearing?
No, I think, I will say, I appreciate Danny and Daniel and Emily. They've worked very hard on this. I'm interested to see, I'm glad that we had the presentation because it gives everybody an opportunity to see it thoroughly through. And of course, this is the first public hearing. We have a second one and time to come back and look at the draft. So I think this is a good test for Starkville and moving in the right direction and addressing what I feel like are complaints that I heard when I was campaigning a year ago, but then also as well that I have consistently heard from my constituents in Ward 5. And one of the points I bring up is that I really feel deeply that if you are an alderman in your ward and you feel like you're not seeing this similar issue in your ward, I feel like as Starkville grows and as Mississippi State University grows and you start to see more absentee property owners, as Mr. Earl Cheney alluded to, you're going to see this problem, and you're going to continue to see it throughout the city. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any alderman might have as it pertains to, where this came from and what the gist of it is. But I think it's pretty straightforward and forward thinking of Starkville to implement this. I think it's a great policy.
All right, Alderman Walker, I saw Alderman Sistrum, I saw your hand.
I've actually talked with Alderman Miller a little bit about this, and it's one of those things that I'm bringing a comment from a constituent who couldn't be here tonight. My neighborhood is one of those older neighborhoods that were designed for smaller houses, single family, 2 cars max. Over time, things have changed. It's a neighborhood that has narrow lots and mature trees. The constituent who got in touch with me directly has a camper which he parks on a hard pad off the street to the front, but not directly to the side of his house because the side yard is too narrow. And I'm not sure that he could have access to his backyard without taking down trees. And so anything that we could take a look at in terms of addressing that sort of situation where you have a narrow lot, a person is trying to be as compliant as possible, but short of off-site parking, and I'm not sure that we're trying to encourage that completely. would be appreciated. And I know y'all are taking comments and you're gonna tweak, and I'm gonna leave it in your good hands to figure out what we might or might not be able to do.
One possible way to address that would be to either have a hard surface parking pad to the side of the lot.
He has
with
that, but
the
it's,
side setback within the front, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Just to where it's on the side and not in the middle. I mean, there's several ways that can be addressed.
And he does have that particular person does have a hard pad that he parks on. It is in front of the house and as far to one side as he could probably do it, so.
All right, well, let's go into the public. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, no, I thought you were giving Ms. Sister on, go ahead.
This is, again, I think this is, some update of this ordinance is needed in Starkville.
Very much.
One of the questions I have is related to Alderman Sistrunk's question. If this is going to be throughout anything that's residential, once you get into, say, R2 or R3 or R4, how do you see, because everything's to the side or not, and some of those side setback requirements might only be 5 or 10 feet. And so I guess as the next iteration comes of this, as to completely preclude people from having a recreational vehicle or how we want to address the issue, I know there is a variance process. Maybe we look at are there some alternatives in terms of related to setback requirements or tree removal or something that might be a part of if it's a formal process. And I tend to agree. I think we're going to enforce our code, but I think a lot of this is going to be complaint driven. Maybe not so much where I just moved in my other neighborhood. We have similar situations where you're looking at that, and I would say for the most part that's going to be complaint driven. But in areas where we have residential neighborhoods that have narrow setbacks, I think we need to try to figure out how we're going to be able to address and discuss that.
We can maybe put a statement that they need to be on the side of the house, if possible, and then list reasons why it wouldn't be possible. Setbacks are too narrow, or something physically blocking it, or slope, and give like the option of putting it in the front if it's physically impossible to get it on the side of the room.
I like that because I think one thing is for certain is that nobody, whether it's an individual homeowner or a renter, nobody's going to live in that house indefinitely. It's going to turn over. I wonder, taking down a 50 or 75-year-old oak tree on the side yard to park a camper that's going to be there for 6 months might do more long-term damage in terms of property values while waiting out the 6 months and not letting the tree there. So I think, I think as long as we're trying to be thoughtful about how we deal with this, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think the graphics really help in terms of trying to understand what the problems and what some of the solutions might be. So I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion.
Now, we have the classification of the recreational vehicles and other stuff. It includes everything, pods, includes utility trailers, closed-in trailers. Would you want all of that stuff to be included, or just campers and boats, or as like an option, not placed on the side?
Well, I mean, looking at the way I read the ordinance, I didn't think, say for example, I didn't think that the far one to the right with the boat parking in the carport, I didn't think that would be allowed. Okay, but you're showing me that that's allowed, and if it's even on the side, that makes it okay. I'm okay with, I would say, I think y'all have done a great job of bringing the first sort of iteration forward. I would leave it up to you to make some determinations, but I think recreational vehicles, boats, may be different than, a pod or whatever. I think it's going to be something that is definitely temporary in nature, whereas the RV may be something that is going to be temporary, but going to be more long-term.
One thing that I do want to suggest that we look at is, I've seen holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas when people spend more time. They'll bring an RV in and they'll spend more time, and I don't think we've addressed holidays here. We've addressed home games, but not your holidays when people have family coming in. That RVs tend to play a factor, so, Alderman Miller.
Yeah, just hearing those out, I think those are all fair alternatives, and certainly want to have something in place that meets everybody and throughout Starkville, especially talking about, there's a good point about the holidays, Mayor, I agree. And then also, but talking about the recreational vehicles, I think in Alderman Sistrunk's case, when you have a homeowner that literally can't move their RV somewhere else on the property, to put something in there and talking about the setbacks that, you know, that gives them that option at the least. Because really, at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, we're trying to protect those property owners at the end of the day. It's really not about that property owner when we talk about this ordinance, if that makes sense. So I think that's a very fair, you know, compromise and policy with that. So that's something to look at as we come into the second hearing.
All right, let's go ahead and get it open as a public hearing. We'll you do 15 minutes per side, so those who are in favor of the ordinance, please come forward and we will time you. We give a 15-minute block, so that depending on how many there are here who want to speak about it, but then we'll do 15 minutes against. So can I have a show of hands of who's planning on speaking in favor? Okay, well, okay, all right, well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead, and Ms. Yes, sir, no, give me just a second, I'm just going, Ms. Harden is gonna keep time, because my phone has died, so, all right. If you'd like to come forward, Mr. Lovely. Just when you get here.
I think most of you know who I am. My name is Emil Lovely, and it's about time we had an ordinance. Parking. Parking is a problem. Mrs. Kilcrest is my neighbor, and we had a discussion about that just today. There needs to be a parking ordinance that requires folks not to park on the street, especially when it won't accommodate parking on both sides of the street. How you get about to doing that, I don't know. Maybe no parking at all. As she said before, there are folks that are buying properties for rental purposes, and they don't care where folks park. It may be as many as 4 cars in a house, and they're parking everywhere. It needs to be corrected. There's a developer that is remodeling some houses in my neighborhood, and he specifically stated to me that in his efforts to remodel those houses, he will not allow on-the-street parking. He made provisions for cars to be parked in back of the houses, and I applaud him for that. I'd like to have a copy of that so we take it to our neighborhood or association. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lovell. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the ordinance? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, I'll close it for the pro side. Anyone else wishing to speak against the ordinance, or anyone wishing to speak against the ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak against the ordinance? All right, I will close it as a public hearing. This is our first public hearing. We'll be having another one. We will be making obviously some tweaks and bringing it back. So we appreciate your involvement and your participation and letting us know how you feel about things. And please continue to do so because we are certainly accessible. So, all right. Next item on the agenda is under Mayor's business. This is a request to authorize to advertise. Mr. Little, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, just want to check and see. This is one of those things that you were interested in, so I want to make sure you were still there. This is a request authorization to advertise for 2 temporary seasonal employees assigned to the streets department, with the goal being cleaning up some of our street signs around our community. We have a number of duplicated streets where we can clean up, put some signs together, and hopefully reduce the unsightliness of all of our street signs, and they are all over town in every ward. So the goal is to get this done this summer. Alderman Sistrunk.
When you're done, I wanted to ask our HR person if we have a pool of applicants already available that we might be able to draw from, as opposed to advertising anew for this position, for these 2 temporary positions.
Mayor, Board of Aldermen,
We have applications that we keep on file from previous people who have applied for some of the maintenance positions that we have. So I definitely can go through our stack of applicants that have already applied and look through them. Okay.
Thank you.
And the goal obviously is to get this done this summer as quick as we can, so if we can pull from a pool, that'd be great. So,
Yes.
okay. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion that we authorize the hiring of 2 temporary seasonal employees to be assigned to the Streets Department, preference being given to applications that are already on file, and if those are not sufficient, to authorize advertising for those positions.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Walker. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please.
Roll call.
Answer when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 7-0, the motion passes. All right, we have now board business. We have a consideration of a request on behalf of Southwire for an ad valorem exemption, and Mr. Higgins is going to come give us a little information on that.
Thank you, Mayor. You have, I think, Lisa put in your book the application for Southwire. They have filled out an application and are requesting the city to grant them an ad valorem tax exemption allowed by law, 10 years, on improvements that they've made at the plant, mostly new equipment. It involved about a $3,066,806 in capital expenditures. This came with 9 new jobs, and they're estimating an increase in payroll of $450,000. So they have filled out their application in accordance with law, sent it to y'all, and it's up to you whether you grant them this 10-year exemption or not. I will say the Board of Supervisors dealt with this last night and approved it on, I think, a 4-to-1 vote to grant them the 10 years exemption. And the same request is in front of you for the city portion of the tax. Understand when these exemptions are granted, they can exempt the county and the city tax. They can't exempt the school tax. So they'd still pay full boat schools tax to the school district. And I'll answer any questions if you got them.
And how long has Southwire been here? Do you remember?
We were talking this morning. I mean, I'm not from here, Mayor,
No, I know.
but somebody said 30 years.
You're a long time resident.
I would not argue with that. I wouldn't know. But
All right. Any
you know.
questions of Mr. Higgins?
Move approval.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Carver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Vaughn, and this is for the resolution and the application, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I saw your hand.
I think we're gonna say about the same thing.
Well, I believe that one of the topics that came up during the Board of Supervisors meetings, and I think is relevant to us as well, is that it would behoove us to maybe develop some guidelines about how we would like to use these powers in the future. And I hope that the board and the Board of Supervisors can have some discussions about that and offer businesses, particularly our long-term businesses like this, some guidance about when we think this is appropriate.
We've got an OCEDA city and county joint meeting coming up, I think the end of
July.
we said 30th.
of July is what it said.
That's one of the things we're gonna talk about to give us some direction. Because these existing companies that make these improvements and ask for them, that's one thing, but we really need some direction where we're recruiting companies that are not here, because we've got in a 24, 48, 72 hour, fill out an RFP and basically make a commitment that gets ratified at a later date, so direction that y'all could give us would be helpful.
So you're saying for new business, you don't have any kind of guidelines on that?
No. The guidelines will be by each governmental entity. I will tell you in Clay County and West Point, Their instruction to us, if they've got a company that's expanding, they want to see the request, they want to review the request, they want to entertain the request.
You've got nothing from Octave Hall and City of Starkville?
No, but we'll develop that coming up. In Lowndes County, they don't want to see anything less than $5 million. So they've set us a threshold that if a company does invest at least $50 million, they don't want to see the request. So as long as we've got some parameters and we know, I think that's all that matters.
You just gotta have a playbook from us.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think we can do that probably on the 30th.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
That'll be a good thorough discussion for
Yeah.
us. Good. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, I have a motion and a second, and if you would, answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrum.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by 7 to none, the motion passes, the resolution with the application. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Davis.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a
Appreciate
good
you
evening.
Hanging with us. Okay, next item is, we've moved from consent, is the consideration of Starkville Country Club to have a fireworks show on its property July the 3rd. Alderman Carver? Okay, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Carver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Little. Okay, discussion?
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Vice Mayor?
Mayor, let me just let the record reflect, South Montgomery's a very beautiful neighborhood, and I certainly admire the area, the environment, the home, very gorgeous. But let me just say, just from a legal point of view, nothing against what the gentleman and the president of the country club is trying to do. My sole concern is I do not want to set a precedent here. The last sentence in the letter from the president says, "We respectfully ask the board for permission to set off fireworks in the city limits on this date as we celebrate our nation's independence." What'll happen here, I can foresee coming down the road, that if somebody on the east side of town, the north side of town, and the west side of town are going to eventually come and ask us for some type of firework display, or to allow them to shoot fireworks on a particular day as we celebrate our nation's independence. And then what'll happen is the door will be open, and it will potentially allow a floodgate. But again, I have nothing against South Montgomery, a very beautiful place. I want to commend them for wanting to do this, but from a legal perspective, I just see that, and just want to get this on the record so it'll be clear why I'm voting against this, because if somebody else come in and want to allow fireworks on Independence Day, or regardless where they live, if I vote for this, then it'll put me in a position to have to be consistent. So I just want to make sure as I make decisions in this community or wherever, that I want to treat all persons who are similarly situated similarly. So I just want to get those on the record, Mayor. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other discussion? Alderman Vaughn?
Yeah, I just hope if someone do come that we would show the same love to them, you know, that we won't change if they would want to shoot firework on that side, because we can't say no, because we open the door for everybody to come in.
All right, Chief, there you are. Okay, sorry, you were in blue. Any concerns from your perspective? Are you going to be providing a fire truck or anything? I mean, would you feel like you needed to provide a fire truck for this?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I think that we would, just to be on the safe side. We do it for Mississippi State when they shoot fireworks. We do it for Sportsplex. I think it'd be equal. We need to do this there. Where I think July 3rd won't be a problem getting Agent 4 to go down there and just sit by and wait until they're done. In case something happens, we can put it out. But
Okay, all right. I just want to be clear. That's right. Thank you. Alderman Vaughn?
I agree with, I'm going to vote for it. I agree with Alderman Vaughn and the Vice Mayor in the sense that it will set a precedent, and that hopefully we'll look at each objectively. And the reason I bring that up is so that I know in making future decisions, is there some criteria with this, just in terms of the type of property that they're going to shoot fireworks, or? Does anybody, I mean, do we,
I don't
I
have any
mean, just,
knowledge about it. and
we're gonna
I'm
do one
sure,
with a bunch of oak
you know,
trees?
Insurance
I mean,
and fireworks companies and that sort of thing, I think, have to meet requirements. Mr. Little?
Is there a-
Can you hear me? Do you have any, knowledge based on your, proximity to the country club as to what their plans are?
It's gonna be on July 3rd, the, Tuesday before the 4th. They've got insurance, liability insurance, and, for the record, they've done this multiple times year after year. For the first year, they've done it probably in about 6 or 7, but it's always gone on without a hitch, and I think it's the first time that they asked for the city blessing.
Okay, all right, I didn't realize that they've been doing it that long, okay.
So
Is that-
they have insurance, according to Mr. Little, and, I think moving forward too, we'll just make sure to check with the fire chief and make sure that we're up to par on safety moving forward. But I plan to vote on this tonight, so,
Okay,
or
thank
for
you.
this tonight.
Alderman Vaughn, so you here?
One question, is it open to the public?
It is, country club, so no, I feel sure it's not open to the public. Okay, thank you. Alderman Walker?
I would, maybe this is, as we're updating special events, it almost feels like this has the potential to be some type of special event, obviously not a road closure or something like that, where we already require insurance and so forth for those types of things. This might be something that could be folded into that in the future as we look for this ask.
Okay, we can look at that with our special event policy,
We
okay?
did look into that, excuse me if I may interrupt.
Go ahead,
We did look
Alderman
into
Little, I
that,
recognize
and
you.
it did not trigger, under our current event policy, it did not trigger an event, because it was not asking for any specific, making any specific request from the city.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, just want to be
Vice Mayor?
clear, I didn't understand your answer to the gentleman from 7 question. His question was, and I didn't hear the answer, his question was, is the event open to the public? What was your response?
I said it's the country club, and that's a membership item, so I feel sure it is not, but I don't have that specifically I'm not a member, so I don't know.
I got you.
I'm not a member as well, but I would say it's for the members, as it has been in the past.
I see, Mayor. So, go ahead, gentlemen.
Mr. Little, are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
Mayor, you just want to make sure, yeah. Thank you, gentleman from 7, for raising that question. Is open to the public. And according to the gentleman from 7 and from the mayor, it is for membership only, and it is not open to the public. So it's a private event. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? I have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote. If you would call yea or nay, or answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
Okay, all right, by a vote of 5-2, the motion carries. All right, one last item under board business will be update of the contract status with Pafford Emergency Medical Services. Vice Mayor has asked for this, and from whom would you like that update, Vice Mayor?
Whoever can legally answer those 3 questions, if anybody at this table can do that.
Okay, Mr. Latimer, sounds like a legal question to me. You're up.
The 3 questions being,
Or the question that involves the 3 items, however you want to characterize it. You know, when we approved the contract, the boards left outstanding some legal concerns that need to be addressed, and the motion was approved subject to those matters being properly addressed to the complete satisfaction of the board. So this has lingered for a few days now, so we just need an update.
And the Pafford folks are here, so let me be clear that they are in attendance.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to hear from the lawyer. I don't need to hear from them at this point. Not personally, attorney. I just want to know where we are on them.
yes, sir. So coming out of the May 15th meeting, there were 5 things that the board charged me to add into the contract. One was to make the effective date August 1 of 2018. The second one was to clarify MSU's status within the EMS district territory. That clarification being that the EMS district territory would be the municipal corporate boundaries of the city. And as long as MSU was not in the municipal corporate boundaries, it would not receive Pafford service. But in the event MSU would be within the municipal corporate boundaries, it would become a part of the district. Third, the board asked me to reinsert the indemnification provision fully back in the contract. Fourth, the board asked me to reinstate the release provision. And then fifth, to reinstate the full insurance provision. Pafford accepted all 5 of those changes except the insurance section. They approved the fact to make the city an additional insured under the contract, but they reject the waiver of subrogation provision, and they rejected the provision that said the city's insurance would always be secondary and excess to Pafford's primary insurance. So they pushed back on those 2 terms. The rest of the contract is agreed upon, and it's before the board tonight for your reconsideration.
Okay. Any, Alderman Carver?
Dr. Seymour, we had spoken earlier. Do you want to speak to anything about the renovation process and your thoughts on that, or if it's a no comment, that's fine too?
No, I mean, that's what we were in town today to do, is look at the stations, and so we're moving forward with probably just doing additions to station 1 and 4, and we're, instead of trying to set out before actually in the fire station, we're just gonna add on to it. That'll be, we'll submit those plans to the city.
As I say, I publicly just say I look forward to doing business with y'all, and thank you for investing in this community.
Yeah, we look forward to being here, we're excited.
Any, Alderman Sistrunk?
So what I'm hearing, and I want to be sure I'm hearing this correctly, is that we have made enough of a change to the contract that we probably need to vote on that again tonight to approve or disapprove.
The way it worked procedurally is that you guys tasked me with putting those 5 things in following the meeting, and had Pafford agreed to that, a contract could have been entered into.
Okay.
But since Pafford did not agree to all 5, I do believe the city has to formalize the contract tonight if that's what it wants to do.
Well, then I move that we approve the contract as presented tonight.
Okay. You have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Carver. Okay, further discussion.
City Attorney, is that a well-written motion? Is that sufficient?
Yes, you're approving the contract that's in the board packets today and is at the table tonight, correct?
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mayor, Attorney, I have not read the contract, but are you absolutely certain that the language in the contract as it is written absolutely, totally, and completely protect the total interests of the city of Starkville?
I can't say absolutely, totally, and completely because there's that waiver of subrogation that's not in there, and the primary insurance provision is not in there, but otherwise I believe the city's protected.
What legal exposure, if any, do you anticipate with those 2 provisions not being in there, and or what risk do you think that we potentially face?
The instant that would trigger the subrogation issue is if Pafford and the city combined in some way, arguably to cause a negligence event or injure someone, and that particular injured party only sued Pafford, and the litigation ensued and discovery ensued, and it came about in the facts of the case that Starkville was involved in that negligence causing action just as much as Pafford or more than Pafford, but it would be too late to insert Starkville in the case. And let's say a judge or a jury issued a judgment against Pafford, and Pafford's insurance carrier paid out that judgment. What the subrogation law would allow Pafford to do is their insurance carrier would step in the shoes of Pafford and have subrogation rights against the city to say, what we paid out in the judgment is really y'all's fault, so we're claiming back against y'all for that amount.
Based on your knowledge and careful reading the contract, do you recommend for the mayor and the board to approve the contract as it is presented and as you have just described to the board?
Vice Mayor, these are the negotiated terms, and I recommend that the waiver of subrogation provision and the insurance provision be inserted in the contract, but whether you guys do the total deal, which is 69 paragraphs, and that's only one of those 69 paragraphs, that's a decision for the Board of Aldermen because it's deal-based, it's a global deal.
My question back to you again, Attorney, is, I mean, just give me a yes or no answer. I'm just asking you, it's a simple question. Do you recommend for your client to approve the contract, either yes or no?
Vice Mayor, I can't answer that because that's a policy issue of whether you want to have a relationship with Pafford. There's so much more to it than just these insurance provisions. My recommendation is that the insurance provisions be in there, but that has to be weighed against the balance and totality of the contract.
Mayor, let me just say this. I'm going to go ahead and vote for the contract. The city attorney is refusing to properly advise the client, in my opinion, but and I'm going to vote in the affirmative that he's not advising us not to enter into the contract, that, because I think he's advising us not to enter into the contract, he has a legal duty to say that, an ethical duty to say that. Because when I ask a question, an independent contractor who works with this board needs to answer that question. And I'm dissatisfied and disappointed that the question was not properly answered. But I'm going to vote for the contract because I want to see this moving on. And the chief has done a great job with this, but the city attorney did not express on the record that he's objects to it. So if some legal issue comes up, we'll deal with that effectively. Yeah, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion by the board on this matter? I have a motion and a second.
Mayor?
Yes, Alderman Little, go ahead.
There has been some questions, I believe, the public in regard as to whether or not Pafford was actually part of the Blue Cross network, which also included the state employees plan. And we have confirmed that they are in network. They're in the Blue Cross network as well as the state employees health care plan. It's also part of their network. And I spoke with a representative down there, and it's separate. You have to call a separate number to talk with them on the state employee side. Billion Mack was her name, and she confirmed that yes, they are in network for both Blue Cross Blue Shield and state employees health plan, and that they just renewed. Went through a renewal process every 3 years, and they've just renewed for an additional 3 years. So, just wanted to clarify that for any questions out there as to their network.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Little.
Thank you.
All right, we were up for a vote. We're up for a vote. If you would answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Nay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-1, this motion passes. All right, thank you. All right, next item of business for us is under the Community Development Department. It is code enforcement. This one has been modified during the adoption of the agenda to delete one parcel from the list, but we have a public hearing. Mr. Sanders, if you want to come forward.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Board of Aldermen. Our Community Development Code Enforcement Division is bringing to you 5 properties in which we're asking to be condemned. With the exception of 1040 North Montgomery Street, I was pleased to report that demolition has taken place, or starting to take place this week. And also, outstanding fees have been paid to the city. The first property that we have is parcel 118N-00-112.00608 Greensboro Street. It is a property in which has burned about a year and a half ago, but has not been cleaned up. And we have sent multiple notices with no success. Parcel 2 is 118O-00-250, 109 Beatty Street. Is a house that at one point it appears that some renovation began but did not continue. There has been no progress with the structure, and we're asking for the property to be condemned. parcel number 119-30-007.00, 1371 Babylon Street. I'm sorry, these are out of order.
That's Apple.
Correct. I will go back to it. Here we are, Babylon Street. Just inside the city limits on the west side of town. It is a structure that is essentially falling down. There's multiple code enforcement issues, mainly structural. You can't really tell it too well in this photograph, but the structure is bowed. The foundation and the roof is starting to give way, and it is a safety issue. So code enforcement is asking for 1371 Babylon Street to be condemned. Excuse me, 212 West Gillespie Street. It's an abandoned structure that is overgrown and is in a state of disrepair. And again, we are asking for the property to be condemned. And that parcel number is 102B-00-321.00. Finally, 307 Apple Street. 307 Apple Street, or parcel number 118P-00-116.00, is a dilapidated structure. It's also, the yard is, as you can see, not very well kept, and is also fairly close to a school, and is a safety and a health hazard. We ask that the structure be condemned.
All right, any questions of Mr. Sanders? Okay. All right, we'll open it as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, now would be the time to do so. Anyone wishing to speak on these on the condemnation of these parcels? Seeing none, I'll close it as a public hearing. Any further, or I need a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn. A second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Miller. Further discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, if you would, answer yea or nay when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 7-0, motion carries. All right, under the planning department, we have first item up is a request to rezone a lot on the west side of Louisville Street. Mr. Sanders, you handling that one as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
RZ 1801 is a request to rezone one lot located on the west side of Louisville Street, within 100 feet of the south of the intersection of Academy Road, from R4 to C2. The property to the east is C1 and is a C-store. Property to the south and west is R5 and are apartments. Property to the north is C1 and is a church. 11 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing notice was published in the Starkville Daily News on May 11th, 2018, and a sign was posted on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received no phone calls against the request. The request was changed from C2 C2 to C1 at the Planning and Zoning Commission with the agreement of the applicant. The original request was for C2. The Planning and Zoning Commission had concerns, but had no concerns with a C1 request. The proposed rezoning would generally be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies found in the city's comprehensive plan. The subject property's place is suburban corridor. The proposed rezoning would be consistent and compliable with adjacent land uses in the vicinity. The property is near the intersection of Academy Road and Louisville Street, which is commercial in nature. The proposed rezoning would be compatible with the existing commercial property. On May 8th, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this request to rezone the property from R4 to C1 due to a change in condition in the public need. I'll be happy to answer any questions in which the board may have.
Okay, any questions from the board on this matter? Alderman Walker.
Mr. Sanders, can you, do you have available the reason the planning and zoning decision decided to go from C2 to C1, the differences in the uses that are allowed in C1?
Yes, sir.
So is that C1 or C2?
This is C2.
So the differences from C2 to C, since we wouldn't be approving C2, we would be approving C1.
That's correct. For example, in C1, would not allow like a tire store or auto store that would allow something like a large amount of something that was very loud. Also, it's more essentially restrictive and allows essentially uses that are essentially more neighborhood in approach as opposed to something that would be found along Highway 12.
Right. And so that would, I guess that would be what I would be looking at here. I think that the Planning and Zoning Board made a fair decision in recommending C1 as opposed to C2. I'm not sure I would agree with C2 in that, but I think something that's more neighborhood commercial, which is going to be more restrictive in the terms of in the types of uses that can occur there, I think is the appropriate is an appropriate zoning. I would have liked to have seen that so we could share that with the public, what could be allowed in C1. But I'm satisfied because I know what our code is in terms of that. It's more restricted in terms of the uses that can occur in C2. So with that, I would offer a motion to approve based on changing character of the neighborhood and public need.
Okay, and I need to have a public hearing on this one, so, let me open it as a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak about it, now would be the time. If you would come forward, identify yourself, please, ma'am.
And thank you for voting.
I'm here on behalf of John Black. My name is Christina Lucas, and I don't have anything to add. I just wanted to, if anyone had any questions, make myself available.
Okay. All right, Ms. Lucas, thank you. Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, I'll close it as a public hearing. Would you make your motion again, Mr. Walker? I'm sorry, you didn't get a second out of that.
I said I move approval based on changing character of the neighborhood and public need.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Vaughn. Okay, any further discussion? If you would, please answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 7-0, motion carries. All right, we have one more public hearing coming up. This one is consideration of request for a variance relief from sidewalks and street design for proposed subdivision on the south side of 182 and intersection of Stark Road. So, Mr. Sanders, would you like to make a presentation? I know the applicant is here.
Yes. The request is BA 18-02. Request from sidewalk and street design requirements on the south side of 182 near the intersection of Stark Road and 182. The Basie family clinic is right here, just to give everyone a sense of place. Tally Ho Drive is over in this area here. The applicant is proposing to develop a 15-lot subdivision. Oh, I should also state that the current and zone is RE, residential estate. The applicant is proposing to develop a 15-lot subdivision with large rural lots. To accomplish this, the applicant is requesting relief from requirements of the ordinance. Crest 1 is not to place sidewalks along Highway 182 and only to place sidewalks on one side of the street inside the proposed development.
Would that be to the north side?
I'm sorry?
Would that be to the north side?
Yes, sir. The applicant is requesting relief not to place
on the south side.
The sidewalk is on the south side of 182, if that's what you're asking.
on the north side of the property, but on the south side of 182.
So he want to waive the south side, but put him on the north side?
That is correct. Yes, yes, sir. And then on one side.
No, they're wanting to not put them on their property. It's not, they're not gonna move it to the north side. They're not gonna put sidewalk at all. They're wanting not to put sidewalk at all on 182.
I think Alderman Vaughn's question, maybe Alderman Vaughn, I think, are you asking, because the last statement Mr. Sanders made was that they're only gonna put it on one side of the street. So on the interior road, is the road going to be on the north, south, east, or west side? I think was the question.
That's my question.
That is correct. Essentially, the applicant is asking relief not to place the a sidewalk on the south side of 182 at the north side of his property, and only on one side of the streets inside the interior of the proposed development.
Okay.
My apologies.
That's okay. Maybe if the applicant's here, would to maybe walk us through what we're talking about?
Thank you. My name is Saunders Ramsey. I'm representing the applicant, which is the Tomlinson family. To better describe the different variances that we're requesting and why we're requesting those, I'll kind of walk you through it. The first one I'd like to speak on is the 182 variance. So there is a requirement to provide sidewalks in the public right-of-way from property line to property line along the right-of-way. The variance process that's outlined in your code outlines that if the cost of that sidewalk is more than 100% over the standard unit price according to MDOT, that could be that would be waived. There's an existing box culvert that goes underneath 182 that we have looked at and would need to be extended approximately 13 feet. There's a good amount of grading that would need to be accomplished along that bank there. It's pretty steep as you travel to the east and come up closer to that lake. So the documentation was provided to the BOAA, but that cost did in fact increase 100%. And so that's the reason the variance is requested. It's not just that we don't want to, it actually falls underneath the variance request process of your code. So that's the 182 one. If we jump inside, Mr. Sanders, if you would go to this one. So this is kind of unique. So as you all know, we are currently in the middle ground of we've adopted a comprehensive plan, but we have not formally adopted a code that marries those two together. So this is actually an excerpt from your comprehensive plan that talks about the cross-section of the streets and a certain place type. This place type is a rural neighborhood place type. Within that place type, it suggests streets of a certain width. I think there's a range 20 to 22 feet. Open shoulders, open drainage swales, things of that nature. It actually says that sidewalks are not required here, but the applicant would like to provide one sidewalk for the neighborhood. That'll be located here, it's shown on the left, which would be the east side of the neighborhood. So this variance request has multiple pieces. It's a lane width reduction, it's a removal of curb and gutter, and it's a removal of sidewalk from one side. However, those requests are all an attempt to get in line with the street section that is proposed for this place type in the comprehensive plan. So one of the first triggers of a variance request is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? And that was our attempt to get this street section consistent with the comprehensive plan. So yes, it's a variance, but it's a variance required to meet the comprehensive plan because the code doesn't really have another street type available. So hopefully that makes sense.
Any questions? Alderman Walker.
Thank you for clarifying this up, Mr. Tomlinson. Thank you for, I know you've been looking at this property or you've had this property for a long time and been trying to decide on what how to develop it. So I'm encouraged that you're bringing this forward. Overall, I appreciate the fact that you're working to line it up with the comprehensive plan, what the code will be. I think this ultimately, once we get the code adopted, we'll have less variances because this would be allowed by right, with the exception of the 182 variance in this case. I think for a 15-lot residential estate, rural place type, I think the proposed cross-section, the open shoulder, open drainage, I think fits that. I have no issue with that, both those variances. The only one that at least gives me pause to really ask myself the question is, what about the sidewalk along 182? And under our variance process, as stated, is a cost associated with that. And when I look at that, I think essentially from that area of the bypass or from Stark Road east into town up until where you get to where more development has, we're going to continue to see from an individual developer standpoint really difficult terrain to deal with. I think the graphic one before this really showed, in my mind, was a very helpful graphic, which shows not only are you talking about adding a minimum of 5-foot sidewalk, which out there is quite frankly too small. That would be what the code would require, but that would be just from a size standpoint. But MDOT would require a 5-foot buffer from the edge of the pavement, then another 5. So you're talking about extensive amount of grading. That would probably realistically put an undue financial burden on anybody that attempts to develop from Stark Road east into town where we have better topography. So I'm inclined to vote for this, but at the same time, Mayor, I think this would be an opportunity to have continue a discussion with MDOT about this is really going to be, we're going to see that west side of town is going to continue to develop, or we hope it does, around the interchange and Stark Road, that intersection. And to be able to provide people access east and to the south along Stark Road, I really think this is a project or a type of infrastructure that would be needed where we could use a little bit of state assistance and MDOT to help out and do that, because I think for any individual developer, it's going to certainly meet that threshold likely of being cost prohibitive based on the existing conditions on the ground.
Thank you, Alderman Walker. Alderman Carver, did I see your hand? I'm sorry. Okay, Alderman Vaughn.
I know when I'm looking at this and studying this, I knew MDOT had to play a big part in this because all that is ditch land, and I know they got to play a part in this. So continue work with MDOT so we can get this project on the road.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. I still need to open this as a public hearing. If there's no further discussion on the board at this point, I will open it as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this particular item, please, now would be the time.
Here I am again.
If you would identify yourself one more time.
Well, I am not a contractor. I have really no dollar in this, except someone said the area is going to grow. We all know in this community that there may be a big development just across 182. We have gotten people to build buildings and demanded sidewalks, demanded them. Now, if you're gonna have all these variances, Change the law. Make it fair for everybody. And I know dealing with HUD, not HUD, but MDOT is a nightmare. But I'm just trying to tell you, when you make a rule, you either have to decide you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. This is going to cost too much money for him, but it's not going to cost too much money for him.
Well, are you finished? Yes, ma'am. That's fair, and I think we're in the process of revising those rules so the only variance in this case that would be requested would be the one at the street. And I will tell you, and I'm a sidewalk advocate. I think they should be everywhere. I think as part of development that should be a requirement. I think that is the right rule that we have in place. But in that same rule, it does clearly state what the variance process is that if it's a financial burden and you can prove that fact, which in this case they have done, then that allows that to change. And I believe the reason that it happens here is because you have the type of topography that you have. And that's where I believe that MDOT would need to get involved. I personally don't make that decision lightly, because I think what is good for one developer should be good for the other developers.
Right.
All right.
Everybody should have this, but what I mean is, anyway.
But in this case, every developer does have the opportunity to seek that variance. And if they can show that they do that, if there is true financial hardship based on the site's characteristics, there's 3 or 4 thresholds that they have to be able to meet there, then that gives them the opportunity to be able to seek that variance.
Well, now is there another variance on the street width?
That is what they were requesting.
The streets within the subdivision are going
Yes,
to
there was a
be
question.
very narrow, right? Like
It would be narrow.
plantation homes? No curbs, no
curb, no gutter.
curbs or gutters.
And that's part of where we're going with that
Okay,
change. in
well,
the
I
code.
can't agree with that either, because that's, you see all these streets now that are too narrow, and we have so many cars, and that creates a dilemma that we're having now, right now, with the parking. You see, so, anyway.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter?
Ma'am, what was your name?
This is Christina Gilchrist.
Okay.
I got it from prior.
Thank you, Warden. I'm Rob Robertson. I own the property across the street, and I'm in favor of this project. I think they're going to do a good job over there, and I just wanted to, while I was here, let y'all know that we're excited about it and think that they're going to do a fantastic job. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else before I close the public hearing? All right, thank you very much. We'll close it as a public hearing, and I either need further discussion or I need a motion, or both. I have a motion, Alderman Carver? All right. I have a motion from Alderman Carver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Vaughn. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you would answer yea or nay when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yeah.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Nay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 5-2, motion carries.
Can I have a comment?
Alderman Carver?
As this relates to Pecan Acres, and this is in Ward 1, but I'm leaning more heavily against Pecan Acres' proposed location for many reasons. The greatest is, I think on multiple occasions I've tried to change, without success, I've tried to change Gladney Lane multiple directions. Either way, we have, my opinion, the most dangerous place in the city of Starkville is when you walk up Greensboro Street, no shoulder, extremely narrow. School buses use that on a daily basis, as do joggers and walkers. And then it's been brought to my attention that even though there would be a smart bus route drop-off within Pecan Acres at the proposed location, in my first meeting, I knew there were 4 locations, but that's not the one I was told. I know that the applicant will say that the federal government is the one that picked the location, but that, I mean, I don't see if an individual is gonna be a pedestrian and they're gonna walk, I don't see any access to any education system, other than Dollar General, any shopping, other than I'm not sure what else is around that location, but I don't think that's the best location for connection, specifically from a pedestrian traffic safety standpoint. They're gonna have to come up Greensboro, and unless, we may have this discussion with Alderman Walker as far as the grade and things like that, but something's gotta give. That's a bottleneck coming over the hill, Greensboro Street, and I'm not so sure I like the idea of, apparently, 50 to 100 people walking that way a day and the bus coming over the hill. I don't think it's the best location for that. This all ties into that discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, next item up for consideration, our friends from the county, I believe, are up. We have a request for a landscape waiver for canopy tree requirements for the new FEMA building.
Man, we take a break now?
Yeah, well, if you would like to make that, yes, we certainly can. Okay, we'll be back at 8:05. All right, we'll be taking a break.
So close.
Alderman Little, did you hear that?
I did, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
David Little was always in the yard.
I like that western shirt, by the way. I like
It is
that
well.
western cut.
That was Chief just told me.
Calvin, why don't you go ahead and go and do what you need to do? No point being miserable sitting in that chair. All right, we will reconvene. Mr. Little, are you back with us?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We will reconvene and go into consideration of LW 18-01. Mr. Sanders?
Yes, Arturo County is bringing this request of a landscape waiver for relief from plant canopy trees at the proposed safe room site, which will be located near the intersection of Lynn Lane and Industrial Park Road near Rackley Oil. The site is located in the south in an M1 zone. At an informal meeting of the Tree Advisory Board, gave general suggestions to the Board of Aldermen that to remove all the canopy trees that are in the fall zone of the safety shelter and reduce the number of required trees. Remove the tree species sycamore from the design due to its lack of wind resistance, and reduce the number of shrubs from the perimeter of the site. I'll be happy to answer any questions in which the board may have.
Okay, so, did I understand from that it's a request for zero landscaping, is that correct?
No.
You said remove. Okay.
Essentially, let's see here. The original request was to remove all the canopy trees, and during the meeting, it was agreed to that essentially any type of tree that is in essentially a fall zone that would threaten the building to be removed. But the applicant is agreeing to place landscaping on the property.
Okay. But just not in just not in the proximity to the building.
That is correct.
All right. So can I ask a clarify? I just want to be able to clarify.
Excuse me, just a second. Did y'all have a question down there?
No, we just,
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, Alderman Walker.
discussing that.
So what I looked at, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So what I looked at in my packet, where it showed all the canopy trees, say in the parking lot and so forth, and in the packet it showed all those marked out red to be removed. Are you saying that all of those trees aren't proposed to be removed?
Not all of the trees, just the ones that would essentially interfere with federal guidelines as far as being a hazard to the building, or that was in essentially a fall zone.
Do we have them marked somewhere in here?
I do not.
Okay. So we can presume it's the ones closest to the building?
Yeah, this is the original landscape plan.
And so when you said it was agreed to, is that what was agreed to by?
Mr. Robertson, you
I want to make sure
represent the county?
that I'm understanding what's going on.
I'm Rob Robertson. I'm the attorney for the county. We are agreeing to landscape. One of the caveats to this, and I know that financial is not a consideration when you're dealing with the landscaping side of this. However, it is whenever there's a grant involved and we're trying to get all of the balance here. Luckily, the group that we talked to were very helpful in terms of giving us some direction to get some help getting our landscaping done out there. So to report, we actually talked to Dr. Robert, I'm probably going to...
Bruzak, yeah.
And we're going to get with the student chapter of the Forestry Association and let them help us manage this as one of their projects. Now, they're not going to be back until obviously the fall, so he couldn't give 100% guarantee, but he said this was something that they would be very interested in and helping us do. But one of the things that we're running into is there is a financial side of this and it's not just the landscaping that we're dealing with today, as far as expense, it's gonna be the maintenance and making certain that those trees and landscaping is taken care of. So we're trying to make certain that we have something that all of our constituents will be proud of, not something that's gonna be done and then not look very good when we're done with it. So what they've suggested in terms of giving us is to make certain that we get rid of the anything that's gonna create a problem with sort of starts falling on top of the building, as well as there's certain trees apparently, I guess you learn lots of things doing this kind of work, that some of these things can become missiles, and when the wind gets up, so they're going to help us make certain that we clear those up. So there will be landscaping, and we're going to be doing the things that is required. But in our original request, when we basically asked for it to be no landscaping because we really didn't know what else to do with what we had to work with. But since we have some experts that are willing to help us get this together, we're taking it to that.
Thank you. That helps clarify some. I would say for me, when I looked at the original drawing that showed all the canopy trees to be removed, that would be hard for me to go down that road. I can live with the fact of moving from the falls on. And I think that's, so what we're going to still see, Buddy, in my mind, what that means is you're going to still see trees. If we're looking at this drawing, we're going to still see trees in that westernmost parking in the middle of the parking, and we're going to be removing trees from immediately around this building. And so if I make a motion and we approve that, then that's going to be the expectation of what we're looking at, and I'll leave up to other folks to decide what particular tree species need to be planted in there. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And so at this point, all we're looking for is a landscape waiver, correct?
Correct.
All right. I would make the motion to approve the landscape waiver request to reduce the amount of canopy trees that are located within the fall zone of the building as determined by the community planning department.
That is correct, yes.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Sistrunk. Further discussion? Anything? All right. If you would, answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
He's absent.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, motion carries.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Now, don't go away. I think you got another one.
We have another one.
And the next one up for that is a landscape waiver from interior parking requirements? No, I'm sorry, wrong one. My apologies. I was looking at the wrong one. I was thinking there were two things that we were requesting. Okay.
Just on your road.
All right. Next item, Mr. Sanders?
Yes, landscape waiver 1802, Lindsay Warner, Dental Office. This is a request by Lindsay Warner for relief from requirements to place 2 landscape islands from dimensional requirements of 9 by 18 from the front of an existing parking lot. The site is located at 303 Hospital Road in a C1 zone. The applicant is proposing to place a 6 by 18 landscape alley and has met or exceeded other landscaping requirements at this site. There was no suggestions or recommendations from the tree advisory members. Be happy to answer any questions that.
So I just want to clarify, is that the only change is that from that minimum interior planting bed of 9 by 18, it's now 6 by 18, but we're still putting a canopy tree in there, is that correct?
We moved them to different areas.
And got a smaller tree in there.
Would you identify yourself for the record?
Part of the problem is the area where those places would go is under overhead power lines already. Second place, that parking lot, which is her primary patient parking lot, has 7 spaces. If you take those 2 9 by 18, she's going to only have 5 spaces for her entire patient load on the level with the building. And we're adding to the back and adding a little parking in the back for the staff. But that parking area is 6 feet below the level of the building, so she doesn't want to ask her senior patients to have to park around the corner and walk, come up 6 feet to get back up to the building.
Would you identify yourself, please?
I'm Cindy Booth, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
representing Dr. Warner.
That's fine, I just we need it for the record.
Yeah,
Thank
Cindy
you.
Booth. And we went and discussed this with the tree board, and they thought that was fine, especially since we actually exceeded the number of trees required for the entire project.
Yeah.
Do you have copies of our landscape plan?
Yeah,
Well,
there-
you can
there's
kind of
in the
see it there,
packet.
yeah.
I move approval.
All right, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Sistrum. Further discussion? Any other discussion? All right. Mr. Little, are you wanting to discuss?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, I'm sorry, I just heard a noise. All right, if you would please answer yea or nay while the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, the motion carries.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. All right, we have, let's see, one more on this page, and then we've got other pages. All right, Mr. Sanders.
Last landscape waiver. Landscape waiver 1803, Slim Chickens. The request is by Joshua Holdings for relief from perimeter landscape strip requirements. The site is located at 518 South Montgomery Street in a C2 zone. The applicant is the applicant is in the process of renovating a former Abner's restaurant building for a new restaurant, Slim Chickens. The existing site does not meet current development requirements. To meet these requirements, the majority of the on-site parking will either be reduced or completely removed. The applicant is requesting to reduce the dimensional requirements of the landscaping strip along South Montgomery to 3 feet and not to place the perimeter landscaping strips as required. The Tree Advisory Board added no conditions, or recommendations, I should say. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion for approval, but before I say that, the reason I would approve this landscape waiver is mainly because, again, that this site is non-conforming in the sense that the existing drive aisle, some of the parking that is part of what was the Abner's building is technically not on their property. So this is one that was a miss from the original development. And so now requiring them as part of this redevelopment to do that side strip would basically be impractical. So for that reason, I move approval.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion from Alderman Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Vaughn. Okay, further discussion? If none, if you would enter your name when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, motion carries. Thank you. All right, and one more item, and Mr. Sanders, you'll be free to go.
Move approve.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Vaughn,
Second.
second from Vice Mayor Perkins. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor, please, answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, motion carries. And thank you, Mr. Sanders. Next item is a claims docket. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Miller. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Discussion? Okay, if you would please answer yea or nay when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
All right, by a vote of 4-2, motion carries. All right, we are now under Human Resources, and we have 3 items. Number 1 is authorization to hire Kirkland Weber as a part-time seasonal program specialist in the Starkville Parks and Recreation Department.
Move approval.
A motion from Alderman Miller. Do I have a second from Alderman Little? Discussion. All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor, please answer the yea or nay when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, motion carries. Next item is the authorization to hire Kelly Conger and Swayze Pillow as part-time seasonal
Move
program
approval, Mayor.
specialists. I have a motion from Alderman Miller.
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Little. Discussion. Hearing none, if you would answer yea or nay while the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
By a vote of 6-0, motion carries. Last and but not least is authorization to hire Shane McMullen as a grounds facilitator supervisor.
Move approval, Mayor.
I have a motion from Alderman Miller and a second from Alderman Little. Discussion. Hearing none. Do I hear discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please answer as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, motion carries. And that concludes our regularly scheduled meeting, at least the open portion of our meeting. Do I have a motion to go into closed determination session?
Move, Mayor.
I have a motion from Alderman Miller to go into closed determination session, to determine the need for an executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Discussion? All those in favor?
Alderman Sistrunk.
Yes, all.
Roll call.
As the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Little.
Yay. Yay, I'm sorry.
That was a yay?
Yay.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Miller.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
All right, by a vote of 6-0, we'll be going into closed session to determine the need for executive session. If you would, please clear the room. And if y'all will shut us down. Thank you.
ask him.
Okay. All right, is everybody, all right, the board has voted to go into executive session to take up the matter of Hinton versus the city of Starkville and a grievance from an employee in the utilities department.